Hello, this is a walkthrough of the Growth Bets template. Just a bit of background. What I'm calling the Growth Bets template is actually based on an experimentation methodology intended for individuals who lead growth motions in organizations, who need a structured approach for organizing and executing growth experiments, and also for getting stakeholder buy-in, getting alignment across multiple departments, and also for distributing all of the insights that these experiments generate across their respective organization. Just to loosely quote Brian Balfour, who actually gave the original inspiration for this template. The goal of any growth leader is to accelerate the rate of learning in their organization. And so to facilitate this learning in an organization, it helps to have a well-structured and repeatable process. In this case of leading growth initiatives, using the scientific method or an experimentation-based approach is recommended, which is what informs the structure of this methodology and this template. First, I just want to give proper credit. The exact structure of this template is taken from Andrew Kaplan, and this has been shared with his permission. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew is a growth coach and growth leader who formerly worked as head of growth at Wistia and Postscript. He's also someone whom I've had the pleasure to get to know a little bit, and he's a hell of a nice guy. You should definitely check out his work at deliveringvalue.co. However, Andrew himself has acknowledged in his version of this template that this experimentation structure came from the person I mentioned before, Brian Balfour, who is the co-founder of Reforge. So while this experimentation methodology is great, and I really love Andrew's Google Docs and Google Sheets templates, I also love using Notion, as I know many people do, especially in the tech world. A lot of people love using Notion. So I just wanted to see if I could translate Andrew's Google templates into a sort of holistic, streamlined workflow in Notion where everything is together. So rather than using a series of docs and sheets that are linked together, this is an all-in-one dashboard where your idea backlog, experiment tracking, and insights library are consolidated into a single Notion database and workflow. So ideation, prioritization, planning, task tracking, even knowledge sharing can be done from one centralized place. Okay, so let's get into the dashboard itself. Firstly, I should just say that I absolutely love cassette futurism and 80s kitschy design, but I rarely get the chance to do it. So I figured if I'm giving away a free template, I should do design that makes me happy. So that's why this is here. And if you don't like it, you can, change it, remove it. So let's create a new idea to enter into our idea backlog. And that's what we see here. This is a single database with multiple views. So you can see that across these different tabs. And what we have is this idea backlog, the test design, test tracking, and then the results and insights library, and some pre-populated insights, some dummy text in here already. So this is ideally where you'd be collecting new ideas, new bets, new experiments, or new ideas for experiments. And so to do that, we'll click this new button. And here you'll see a place to add a new name for this bet. So let's just call this great new idea. And you can also add a test ID. You can leave it empty for now, but I'm just going to add this. This here, this is where you'll see this one pager. And in this one page view of this test, you will see every phase of the experiment. So the stage, this is the stage where it is entered as an idea in the backlog. Then the next step would be the stage where the idea is converted into a properly drafted experiment. And these are accordions that you can see twirl open. You see the details. And when you don't want to see them, you can twirl them back up and they go away. And then the final stage is the results and insights that are generated from this experiment. What's important to mention is that each of these three phases are reflected in this database view. So these are just two different ways of viewing the exact same information. So if we come back to our great new idea and we decide that we just want to fill in the information for the idea backlog. So maybe you gather your ideas here, and then once per week or once per month, your growth pod, your growth team comes together and evaluates the new ideas in the backlog. And then you decide to move on to the test design. But first, everyone who gets the chance to pitch an idea has to fill out this database entry. As I said before, you can either fill in this spreadsheet view, fill in these fields here, or you can fill in this one pager or this document view, whichever one you prefer. What's important to realize is that these two views, this database view and this document one-pager view, they are both synced. This single page view is a little better formatted and provides more context and information. However, while this page almost looks like a text document, these text boxes here are actually fields in this database, which means as you fill out this document, you are actually entering information into a database that can easily be tracked and filtered. So for example, if I just fill out this description, so I've filled out these two fields, these two text boxes in my one pager. And now when I come back to my database view, you will see that these two fields have been populated. So these two areas are synced. So let's just round out the remainder of the information in this new bet. We can also fill out the ICE score here. I explained down here what each of these means. Say this is a potentially high impact, just filling out some dummy text, medium confidence, and it's difficult. So the ease is very low. So we'll put that as a 1. And then the calculation occurs here automatically, an ICE score. Now this part of the bet is filled out and you see it here in the backlog. And so as you can gather these over time, over the course of a couple weeks or a couple months, and then you review them as a team, and this backlog populates. But because everything is synced, you can sort everything very easily. You can filter everything very easily. You can sort according to ICE score, even though you filled this out using this one pager document type structure. Let's say we now pick this idea. You go through your growth team, growth pod meeting, and you decide that, yeah, this idea, we're going to move forward with this one. We're going to turn it into a proper experiment. So we're going to move this over to the planning stage. You'll notice the second I change the status of this from backlog to planning, it moves from this view, this idea backlog tab, to the test design tab. So these two views are synced and it moves right along from left to right. There's no possibility for duplicate information or for maintaining multiple documents. It's all one document, it's all one database, and everything is synced and moves along the entire life cycle of this experiment. Now, when we shape the proper test design, we have these new fields here. So I'm just going to fill in some dummy text here. Okay, so I've filled in these two fields here. This is what we could learn from a successful experiment, ... Here's what we could learn if our hypothesis is proven incorrect, because you can still learn something useful even from an unsuccessful experiment. So supporting data, so any relevant information, anything that informed this experiment or what inspired it or prior research, either qualitative or quantitative. You can just say example.com could this, and we see here once again that this database view gets gradually filled out as we fill in the one pager. Here you can include a screenshot of your test concept. So let's just do a really quick screenshot here and I will upload that just to show how it works. Okay, and now that's uploaded. Okay, we see our screenshot here. That could be of anything, could be of a design, could be of a screen that you're testing or a particular design or flow that you're testing. This would be of the control variant, and then you link to your where the control variant lives. Okay. Again, this is just dummy text and dummy images, but once again, we see when we go back to the database, these images are viewable here. So maybe you want to make sure that every single experiment that you're currently planning has everything properly filled out, and you want to double check to make sure that every experiment has a control screenshot. You can easily filter that here. You can filter for any entries that are missing an image. That's just one benefit of using this database view. So a few of these here are very important. So when you enter your timeline, let's just say we want to put in a timeline, click end date, and I'll show you why in a moment. Let's just say we're going to start here and it's going to run for, I don't know, let's say it runs for 2 weeks and that's the end date. Let's just list the number of variations as 2 for now. Let's weekly traffic, we can just say it's 20,000 visitors for round numbers. Percentage of the users tested, let's just say a quarter. Again, round numbers. Minimal sample size, let's call it 5,000. And this is also a very interesting field here. This connects to a calculation that we will see in one of the other views. So let's just say the time to uplift, let's just say it takes a week, 7 days before we notice proper uplift. And then here you can also list any additional stakeholders, people who need to be informed. So I'll put that here. Just list myself multiple times. And now the experiment is properly planned and filled out. So we can close this up. And when we go back to this database view, we see everything is properly filled out. It's ready to start. But what's also interesting is now when we go over to this test tracking phase, we can then transition this over to live when we actually launch it, or we can keep it in planning. But whenever it's live, we can shift it over here. And again, it updates and it moves out of the test design phase because now it is active. We move it back to the planning phase. We see it populates again back into this test design view. But what's interesting is one of the fields we filled out was the timeline. And when we go to this test calendar view, we will see our experiment listed on a calendar. Also, we entered an expected uplift field a number of days, and that also gets added to this new view. So we see this is the current date, and we see the date at which we expect this test to begin demonstrating an uplift. So we can track that as well. And this is automatically placed on this calendar view based on the number that we put into this field here, and we can change it. So let's just say we did it wrong and we didn't want to come back, and we expect that the uplift will occur earlier. Let's just say it's going to occur in 3 days. The expected uplift, we just change the number of days, time to detect uplift. We come back and this view is edited. Or maybe we also decide that this is just too long. We only want to run this for a single week or a single work week. Let's come down to the timeline, and we're going to change the end date to, we're going to run it from Monday to Sunday. And we come back and this is now automatically updated. So now if we go back to the test tracking, so long as it's not placed on hold, we list the test as done. And then we come back to this results tab. And as I said, I placed some dummy text in here already. We can then pop this back open. We go to the conclusion area and we just say, here is the link to the experiment, maybe your data, I don't know, data.com. And here you list the number of things that you learned. And then you click whether or not the hypothesis was confirmed or disproved. So let's just say in this case, it was confirmed. You check that box. And then you list out, given that this was correct, what is the next step in this line of experimentation? What are the next steps given that this was proven correct? Okay, so we've completely filled out our evaluation. Obviously, you're probably going to include far more information in your actual evaluation. But once again, what's important is that as we update this one page, this document view, we now have these fields populated here. And so you can now right-click this view, copy link to view, and then share this in a Slack channel or in a chat. And anyone who has access to this database, this page, will be automatically redirected to this view and will see this insights library and can review this for themselves. So yeah, that's, I think, the real power of Notion and why I think it's useful to at least have one version of this experimentation methodology, this growth bets methodology placed in a Notion document in this format. And I hope you find it useful. Thanks.